Picture this, June 18th, 2023, North Atlantic Ocean. A small submersible called Titan descends into the dark, cold waters above the wreck of the Titanic. Inside are 5 people: a billionaire adventurer, a British businessman and his teenage son, a French Titanic expert, and the CEO of the company that built the submersible. They're heading to the most famous shipwreck in history, the RMS Titanic, resting 3,800 meters below the surface. It's a journey few have ever made. The pressure at that depth is immense, over 5,600 pounds per square inch, enough to crush almost anything. But the passengers are excited. They've paid $250,000 each for this once-in-a-lifetime experience, to see the Titanic with their own eyes, to touch history. The Titan submersible is small, about the size of a minivan. Inside there's barely room to sit, no seats, just a cramped interior with a single small viewport made of thick acrylic. The passengers sit on the floor, the walls are close, the air is recycled, there's one toilet, a curtain in the corner for privacy. The submersible is controlled by a modified video game controller, a Logitech wireless gamepad, the kind you buy at Best Buy for $30. The CEO Stockton Rush is piloting. He's confident. He's made this dive before. He built this submersible. He knows what he's doing. Or so he thinks. At 9:45 a.m., the Titan begins its descent. The surface ship, the Polar Prince, monitors from above. Communication is maintained through text messages, short pings. Everything seems normal. 1 hour and 45 minutes later, at 11:15 a.m., the Titan sends its final message, a routine status update. All good here. Then, silence. The surface team waits. They send messages. No response. They try again. Still nothing. Minutes pass. Then hours. The Titan is gone. A massive search and rescue operation begins. The U.S. Coast Guard, Canadian forces, private companies, ships, planes, underwater robots. The world watches. Media coverage is constant. Social media explodes. Everyone is asking, are they alive? Are they trapped on the ocean floor? Is there still time? For 5 days the world holds its breath. Rescue teams search frantically. Families pray. Experts speculate. Time is running out. The submersible only has 96 hours of oxygen. And then on June 22nd, the U.S. Coast Guard makes an announcement. They've found debris, pieces of the Titan submersible, scattered on the ocean floor, near the Titanic wreck. The Titan didn't get lost. It didn't get stuck. It didn't run out of oxygen. It imploded, catastrophically, in a fraction of a second. At some point during its descent, likely around the time of that last message, the immense pressure of the deep ocean crushed the submersible like a soda can. All 5 people inside died instantly. They didn't suffer. They didn't even know it was happening. One moment they were alive, the next gone. This is the story of the Titan submersible disaster, the deep-sea tourism trip that ended in tragedy, the warnings that were ignored, the man who built a submersible against all expert advice, the 5 people who paid to see the Titanic and never came back, and the questions that remain about safety, hubris, and the price of adventure. Let me take you through what happened, who was on board, why the Titan failed, and what this disaster revealed about the dangers of deep-sea exploration. The RMS Titanic sank on April 15, 1912. After hitting an iceberg in the North Atlantic, over 1,500 people died. It's the most famous maritime disaster in history. The ship's wreck was discovered in 1985 by oceanographer Robert Ballard, lying 3,800 meters below the surface, about 370 miles off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. Since its discovery, only a few hundred people have ever visited the Titanic wreck. Why? Because it's incredibly difficult and dangerous. The depth is extreme. The pressure is crushing. The water is near freezing. Specialized submersibles are required, vessels designed to withstand the immense pressure of the deep ocean. For decades, only scientific and military submersibles made the journey, but in recent years a new industry emerged: deep-sea tourism. Companies began offering wealthy clients the chance to visit the Titanic for a price. One of those companies was OceanGate Expeditions, founded by Stockton Rush. Stockton Rush was born in 1962 into a wealthy California family. His grandfather was an oil tycoon. Rush grew up with money, privilege, and a love of adventure. He was fascinated by aviation and submarines from a young age. Rush studied aerospace engineering at Princeton University. He became a pilot. He even served as a test pilot for experimental aircraft. But his true passion was the ocean. He wanted to explore the deep sea. He wanted to make it accessible to everyone, not just scientists and military personnel. In 2009, Rush founded OceanGate, a company dedicated to building submersibles for deep-sea exploration and tourism. His vision was bold: make deep-sea exploration affordable and accessible, take regular people, regular wealthy people, to places no one had ever been. Rush was a visionary. He was also arrogant. He believed he knew better than the experts. He dismissed safety regulations as outdated and unnecessary. He believed innovation required risk. He famously said at some point safety just is pure waste. That statement would come back to haunt him. In 2021, OceanGate began offering trips to the Titanic wreck. The cost $250,000 per person. The experience an 8-day expedition, including a dive to the Titanic in OceanGate's submersible Titan. The Titan was Rush's creation. He designed it, he oversaw its construction, and he cut corners. Most deep-sea submersibles are made from titanium or steel spheres. Spheres are the strongest shape for withstanding pressure. Titanium is incredibly strong and well-tested for deep-sea use. Companies like Triton Submarines and the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution have built submersibles using these materials and designs, and they've completed thousands of safe dives. But Rush didn't want to use a traditional sphere design. He wanted something different, something innovative. He built Titan with a cylindrical carbon fiber hull. Carbon fiber is lightweight and strong, great for airplanes and race cars, but it's not typically used for deep-sea submersibles. Why? Because carbon fiber doesn't handle compression well. It's strong under tension but weak under pressure, and at 3,800 meters deep, the pressure is immense. Experts warned Rush. Marine engineers, submersible designers, scientists, they all told him carbon fiber is the wrong material, it will fail, it's not safe. Rush ignored them. He believed he knew better. He believed carbon fiber was the future. He dismissed the experts as old-fashioned and risk-averse. In 2018, a group of over 30 industry leaders, oceanographers, and deep-sea experts sent a letter to Rush, warning him that OceanGate's experimental approach could lead to catastrophic failure. They urged him to have Titan certified by independent safety organizations, like the American Bureau of Shipping or DNVGL, which certify submersibles for safety. Rush refused. He said certification was too slow, too expensive, and stifled innovation. He said OceanGate would self-certify. Essentially, he would decide if his submersible was safe. Several OceanGate employees raised concerns. David Lockridge, OceanGate's Director of Marine Operations, wrote a detailed report in 2018, outlining serious safety issues with Titan. He warned that the viewport, the thick acrylic window passengers looked through, was only rated for 1,300 meters, not 4,000 meters. He warned about the carbon fiber hull. He said the submersible was not safe. Rush fired him. Lockridge sued OceanGate for wrongful termination. OceanGate countersued, claiming Lockridge was disclosing proprietary information. The case was settled out of court. Lockridge's warnings were buried. Other employees quit, citing safety concerns. But Rush continued. He believed in Titan. He believed in his vision, and he kept taking paying customers to the Titanic. Between 2021 and 2023, OceanGate conducted multiple Titanic expeditions. Dozens of people paid $250,000 each to dive in Titan. Some dives were successful, others had problems. Titan experienced mechanical failures, communication issues, and battery problems. On some dives, passengers had to wait hours on the surface, while crews fixed issues. On others, the dive was aborted entirely. But Rush kept going. He kept taking customers, and he kept piloting Titan himself. In June 2023, OceanGate launched another Titanic expedition. 5 people signed up for the dive on June 18, 2023. Stockton Rush, 59 years old, CEO of OceanGate, the man who built Titan, the pilot. Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 77 years old, a French deep-sea explorer and Titanic expert. He'd been to the Titanic wreck over 30 times. He was one of the world's leading Titanic researchers, known as Mr. Titanic. He was there to guide the expedition. Hamish Harding, 58 years old, a British billionaire businessman and adventurer. He'd flown to space on a Blue Origin flight. He'd been to the South Pole. He'd set world records for deep-sea exploration. He was an experienced adventurer, always seeking the next challenge. Shahzada Dawood, 48 years old, a Pakistani British businessman, vice chairman of Engro Corporation, one of Pakistan's largest conglomerates, wealthy, educated, passionate about marine conservation. Suleman Dawood, 19 years old, Shahzada's son, a university student. He was terrified of the trip. He didn't want to go, but it was Father's Day weekend. His father wanted to share this experience with him. Suleman went to make his father happy. 5 people, each with their own reasons for being there, each paying $250,000, each trusting Stockton Rush in his submersible. On the morning of June 18, 2023, the 5-boarded Titan. The submersible was attached to the Polar Prince, a surface support ship. Titan was lowered into the water and released. The descent began at 9:45 a.m. Newfoundland time. The plan was simple: descend 3,800 meters to the Titanic wreck, spend a few hours exploring, take photos, then return to the surface. The entire trip would take about 8 to 10 hours. Communication with the surface was maintained through text messages. The submersible had an acoustic communication system, sound waves transmitted through water. It was slow and limited, only short text messages could be sent. No voice communication, no video. The Polar Prince received periodic status updates from Titan as it descended. Everything seemed normal. At 11:15 a.m., Titan sent its last message, a routine status update, all good here. Then nothing, silence. The surface team waited. They sent messages, no response. They tried again, still nothing. At first they weren't too concerned. Communication issues were common with Titan. It had happened before. Maybe the system glitched. Maybe they'd hear from Titan soon. But as minutes turned to hours, concern grew. Where was Titan? Why weren't they responding? By late afternoon, the Polar Prince crew realized something was seriously wrong. They notified the U.S. Coast Guard. A massive search and rescue operation began. The U.S. Coast Guard, Canadian Coast Guard, U.S. Navy and private companies all joined the search. Ships and aircraft rushed to the area. Underwater robots, remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, were deployed to scan the ocean floor. The media picked up the story. By June 19th, it was global news. Headlines everywhere. Submersible missing near Titanic wreck. 5 people trapped in deep ocean. Race against time to save Titan passengers. The world watched. Social media exploded. People followed every update. Theories spread. What happened? Are they alive? Are they stuck on the ocean floor? Do they still have oxygen? Experts were interviewed on TV. They explained the situation. Titan had 96 hours of oxygen. If the submersible was intact and the passengers were alive, they had until Thursday, June 22nd, before the oxygen ran out. A countdown began. The clock was ticking. Rescue teams searched frantically. But the ocean is vast. The area around the Titanic wreck is remote. The water is deep, dark, and cold. Finding a small submersible on the ocean floor is like finding a needle in a haystack. On June 20th, search teams detected underwater noises, banging sounds, rhythmic, every 30 minutes. Could it be the passengers? Were they signaling for help? Hope surged. Media reported the sounds. People online analyzed them. Maybe they're alive. Maybe they're trapped but conscious, banging on the hull to signal rescuers. But experts were skeptical. The sounds could be anything. Ocean noise, debris shifting, marine life, sonar artifacts. And even if it was the passengers, how could rescuers reach them? Even if they found Titan, there was no way to retrieve it from 3,800 meters deep. No rescue submersible could reach that depth and time. The situation was grim. Even if the passengers were alive, rescue was nearly impossible. On June 21st, day 4, the oxygen was running out. Experts estimated the passengers had less than 24 hours left. The search intensified. More ships, more ROVs. Everyone was hoping for a miracle. But deep down, many experts already knew. The chances of survival were almost zero. On June 22nd, the U.S. Coast Guard held a press conference. They announced they had found debris, pieces of the Titan submersible, scattered on the ocean floor, about 1,600 feet from the Titanic wreck. The debris pattern was consistent with a catastrophic implosion. The submersible had imploded. The pressure hull failed. The intense pressure of the deep ocean crushed Titan in a fraction of a second. All 5 people aboard were dead. They had been dead since Sunday, June 18th, probably within an hour or two of beginning their descent. Around the time of that last message, the search was over. There was no rescue. There were no survivors, just debris on the ocean floor. The families were notified. The world learned the truth. The 5 passengers, Stockton Rush, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood, and Suleman Dawood, were gone. What exactly is an implosion? When a submersible descends into the deep ocean, the pressure outside increases dramatically. At 3,800 meters deep, the pressure is about 5,600 pounds per square inch. That's nearly 400 times the pressure at sea level. A submersible's pressure hull is designed to withstand this pressure. It keeps the inside at normal atmospheric pressure while the outside is under immense force. The hull has to be incredibly strong. If the hull fails, if a crack forms, if the material weakens, if the structure gives way, the pressure differential causes a catastrophic implosion. The hull collapses inward, instantly, in milliseconds. The implosion is so fast that the human brain doesn't have time to process it. One moment you exist, the next you don't. There's no pain, no suffering, no awareness. It's instantaneous death. The passengers aboard Titan likely never knew what happened. They were sitting in the cramped interior, looking out the viewport, perhaps marveling at the deep ocean around them. And then nothing. The hull failed. The submersible imploded. They died instantly. Why did Titan implode? The investigation is still ongoing as of 2024, but experts have theories. The carbon fiber hull was the primary suspect. Carbon fiber is strong, but it doesn't handle repeated pressure cycles well. Every time Titan dove and resurfaced, the hull was subjected to immense pressure and then released. Over time, microscopic cracks form in carbon fiber. These cracks weaken the structure. Eventually, the hull fails. Stockton Rush had been warned about this. Experts told him carbon fiber was unsuitable for repeated deep dives. Traditional submersibles use titanium spheres precisely because titanium handles pressure cycles without degrading. But Rush ignored the warnings. He believed carbon fiber was the future. He believed he could engineer around the problems. He was wrong. The viewport was another issue. David Lockridge, the fired OceanGate employee, had warned that the viewport was only rated for 1,300 meters. Titan was diving to 4,000 meters. The viewport was under 3 times more pressure than it was designed for. It's possible the viewport failed, causing the implosion. There's also evidence that Titan showed signs of stress on previous dives. In 2022, a loud cracking sound was heard during a dive. Passengers and crew were alarmed. Rush dismissed it as normal. He said carbon fiber makes sounds as it settles under pressure. But experts believe those sounds were warning signs. The hull was failing. Slowly, cracks were forming. Titan made multiple dives to the Titanic between 2021 and 2023. Each dive weakened the hull further. By June 18, 2023, the hull had reached its breaking point. It failed, and everyone inside died. After the implosion, questions and criticism poured in. How was OceanGate allowed to operate without certification? Why didn't regulators stop them? Why did passengers trust an uncertified submersible? The answer is complicated. OceanGate operated in international waters, outside the jurisdiction of most regulatory bodies. They didn't need certification because they weren't operating under a specific country's laws. They classified their trips as experimental expeditions, not commercial tourism, which allowed them to bypass many regulations. Passengers signed extensive waivers. The waiver for the Titan expedition explicitly mentioned the possibility of death. It stated the submersible was experimental and not certified. Passengers acknowledged the risks. But did they truly understand the risks? When you pay $250,000 for an expedition led by a CEO who exudes confidence, who's made the dive multiple times, who dismisses safety concerns as fear-mongering, do you really believe you're going to die? Stockton Rush was a charismatic salesman. He convinced people his submersible was safe. He convinced them the experts were wrong. He convinced them innovation required risk. And 5 people paid the ultimate price for believing him. Stockton Rush, 59, the CEO and pilot, the man who built Titan, the man who ignored every warning. He died doing what he loved, but he took 4 others with him. Paul-Henri Nargeolet, 77, Mr. Titanic, one of the world's leading Titanic experts. He'd made over 30 dives to the wreck. He trusted Rush. He believed the expedition was safe. He was wrong. Hamish Harding, 58, the British billionaire adventurer. He'd been to space. He'd set records. He was fearless, but this time fearlessness cost him his life. Shahzada Dawood, 48, the Pakistani British businessman, a family man, a father. He wanted to share this adventure with his son. Suleman Dawood, 19 years old, a teenager, his whole life ahead of him. He didn't even want to go. He was terrified, but he went to make his father happy, and he died because of it. That last detail breaks hearts. Suleman didn't want to be there. Friends said he was scared, but it was Father's Day weekend. His father wanted to share this experience. Suleman went out of love, and it killed him. After the disaster, lawsuits were filed. Families of the victims sued OceanGate. They argued the company was negligent, reckless, and knowingly put passengers in danger despite warnings. Investigations were launched. The U.S. Coast Guard, the National Transportation Safety Board, and international agencies all began examining what went wrong. OceanGate suspended all operations. The company is effectively finished. No one will ever dive in an OceanGate submersible again. The deep-sea tourism industry faced scrutiny. Other companies like Triton Submarines, which operate certified safe submersibles, distanced themselves from OceanGate. They emphasized their safety records, their certifications, their adherence to industry standards. But the damage was done. The Titan disaster made people question whether deep-sea tourism is worth the risk. The Titan disaster raises difficult questions. Was this tragedy avoidable? Absolutely. If Stockton Rush had listened to experts, if he had used proven materials and designs, if he had sought certification, those 5 people would likely still be alive. Was Rush criminally negligent? Possibly. He knowingly ignored safety warnings. He fired employees who raised concerns. He operated an experimental submersible without proper testing or certification. But Rush is dead. He can't be prosecuted. He paid for his hubris with his life. But what about the passengers? Did they bear responsibility for their own deaths? They signed waivers. They knew the risks. They chose to go. But here's the problem. Informed consent requires accurate information. Were the passengers truly informed? Did they understand that experts had warned the submersible was unsafe? Did they know employees had been fired for raising safety concerns? Or did they trust Rush's assurances that everything was fine? It's easy to say they should have known better, but when a CEO with decades of experience tells you it's safe, when you see videos of successful previous dives, when you're paying $250,000, you assume the company has done its due diligence. The truth is Stockton Rush lied. By omission, by dismissal, by arrogance. He misled his passengers. He convinced them Titan was safe when it wasn't, and they died because they believed him. The Titan submersible disaster is a modern cautionary tale about hubris, innovation without safety, and the deadly consequences of ignoring expert advice. Stockton Rush believed he was a visionary. He believed he was revolutionizing deep-sea exploration. He believed the experts were wrong, that regulations were obstacles, that innovation required risk. He was wrong, and his arrogance killed him and 4 others. The deep ocean is one of the most hostile environments on Earth. The pressure is crushing. The cold is deadly. The darkness is complete. Exploring it requires humility, respect for engineering principles, and adherence to safety standards developed over decades of experience. Rush had none of that. He had ego. He had confidence. He had a belief that he knew better. And on June 18, 2023, at 3,800 meters below the surface of the North Atlantic, his submersible imploded. In a fraction of a second, 5 lives ended. June 18, 2023, 5 people board a small submersible called Titan. They descend toward the Titanic wreck. They're excited, confident, trusting. At 11:15 a.m., Titan sends its last message. All good here. Minutes later, the hull fails. The pressure hull collapses. The submersible implodes. All 5 die instantly. For 5 days the world watches a rescue effort, hoping, praying, waiting. On June 22, the truth is revealed. Titan imploded. Everyone is dead. They've been dead since Sunday. Stockton Rush, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood, Suleman Dawood. 5 people, 1 imploded submersible, a disaster that was predicted, warned about, and entirely avoidable. The Titan submersible disaster, a tragedy of hubris, ignored warnings, and the deadly cost of cutting corners in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. $250,000 per seat, 96 hours of oxygen, 5 lives lost in a fraction of a second. The deep ocean is unforgiving, and Stockton Rush learned that the hard way. He just took 4 others with him.